guys. Welcome back to another weekly episode of your Market Pulse with Dana and David. We're here to talk about everything that's going on in the real estate market here locally in the Nashville, Middle Tennessee area, as well as nationally, what we're seeing and what we're hearing from other agents as we talk to them around the country. So, episode 2, Dana, we made it through. We didn't get banned from the Facebook from the last one. How are you?
For you,
Good. What you up to? What you doing today?
just surviving the winter tundra here in Middle Tennessee.
Yep.
So very grateful for heat and power though, whereas so many are less fortunate and don't have that. So super grateful for that. So
Yeah, a lot going on all around the country, making an impact, of course, in the real estate market. It's funny, we were just talking about 2 weeks ago that the last 2 years we've had a winter impact within the first 14 days. And so if we look back at our stats over the first
Mhm.
2 to 3 weeks of the market, you always see this dip, and we know that's from those winter impacts. So what do you think will happen this week? You think we've had a whole lot of sales happening right now?
It's been a little slow. It's been a little slow. Showings are slow, which, a lot of people haven't been able to get out and about. A lot of places haven't had power. And so that's just to be expected. I know we're expecting some winter weather this weekend, but definitely less impactful. And again, right, we're looking forward to the Super Bowl, right?
Isn't that funny? It was if a week ago someone had told us we were going to get an inch of snow on Saturday, we'd all cleared out Kroger again, right? But
Yeah,
now we're like pros. Like we've just suffered through
that's true.
like 4 or 5 days of ice. We're like, what? An inch of snow on Saturday? Like no big deal, right? So
That's
when Dana
right.
mentions the Super Bowl, we've had a running saying at our company, what, last 10 years, that the Super Bowl
Hmm.
is almost always the tipping point of when our seasonality really starts to pick up. I think people get a little bit stir crazy. You start seeing, used to, a lot of the spring selling season had to do with people getting their tax refund checks. And so as they get further into February and March and April, could play a role in it. Wonder how much impact that has anymore. I think about that in terms of first-time homebuyers. I was just reading the NAR statistics around just the low number of first-time homebuyers entering the market and the average age of that. You think that has anything to play into it? Because I guess we're assuming that first-time homebuyers would use that tax refund more than a move-up buyer. I don't know. Would that be true? Maybe, right?
Possibly, possibly. I say it's hard to tell. I think every situation's different, especially with the average first-time home buyer moving up in age. I think what NAR said 40 now is the first-time home buyer, and that is just crazy, crazy,
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, kind of
And
kind of
again, I
blows
think
your mind. Yeah, I
yeah,
think the National Association of Realtors report came out, said first-time homebuyers now make up 21% of the market, right? That's the lowest share of the market since 1981. If you think back what was happening in the late 70s and 80s, very similar to what we've seen. Well, I shouldn't say similar, rates were way higher,
they
but
were like 17,
perception-wise,
18%.
yeah, right. Perception-wise, I know that's when we hear people talking about, and thank goodness, I'm still in my 20s, so I didn't get to experience it. But what I've heard in the late 70s, early 80s was that rates were 16, 17, 18% interest rates. I mean, I think I remember my mom buying our first house and like, I mean, it had to be 8 or 9. So that had to be what, 87 or 88. I think we still were at a 13% interest rate. And so that's where you hear a lot of people talk about perception. Now, the difference is then it was
Price.
13% on a $40,000 home, right?
Right, right, right.
But for those of you listening, the logic would tell us that prices have gone up marginally. They definitely are going up less the last few years. And so I think, Dana, we may have talked about this on our last episode, but prices probably only about a 6 to 7% gap off of what would be the normal trend line. So I think arguably you could say that while you can blow it out of proportion or say that homes are grossly overpriced, when you look at that in range of wage growth and wage increases, the gap really isn't that big, guys. And so that's where you see, like, as prices haven't gone up much the last few years, we'll either see a trajectory where prices continue to only go up a 0.5% to 2 to 3% a year, or as we see interest rates coming down, it will also close that gap on affordability. And so you really look at it, Dana, we're really at a pretty healthy market right now, which is not what a lot of headlines are screaming, right? And thankfully, I don't think we're trying to get 4 million followers on this episode. So we don't need some wow headline, although we'll probably roll it out that Dana
Yeah.
says
But it is
2026.
well, and I will say I actually ran I love the one of the tools that we have, especially for first time home buyers, looking at like, do we just rent or do we buy now? Right. And so we've got some great useful tools out there. And when I ran the statistics, so for example, this buyer, a first time home buyer, they're getting married this year, there's lots of expenses going out. Well, Dana, I think we should just rent. I said, well, let me just run it for us. So, based upon a $325,000 home, based upon the rent, right, their loan, what they're putting down, it was even Steven. So, I mean, it was $38,000 out the window either way. So, why go pay someone else's mortgage when you can just put that money towards your mortgage and gaining equity?
Yeah.
So, but that was crazy.
Yeah, general rule of thumb we've used for, I mean, been doing this for over 20 years, that if you're going to live in the home for more than 12 to 18 months, yes, it's almost always going to make more sense to buy, right? If you're going to
Yeah,
live there
this
less
was
than
based
12 to
upon
18
19
months,
months, so
yeah,
just shot, just
yeah.
just over that.
Yeah, so right there in line with what we've used for ages, because it's if you're going to live there less, of course, right? I mean, it's really difficult to buy a house and sell a house and not lose money in that process if you do it in less than 12 to 18 months. And we've seen people where life events happen, they get a job move, something comes up, they have to do that. And we're able to kind of work through that with them. But for the most part, again, if you're going to rent, that's what, 100% interest, right? I mean, all that money's out the window. And so it's one of those that, like, unless we think something is going to change in the world, which I hate to say it, the older I get, the more I do see the rhythm, right? The cycles and how it moves. And so you go, probably not something dramatic. AI has the ability to impact us in amazing ways. But we also, that's the beautiful thing about real estate, right? We all still are going to need a roof over our head. We still need shelter. It's one of the most basic fundamental aspects of life. So when you look at that and you go like, yes, it's expensive now, but I remember freaking out buying my first house in what was that? I don't know, 2004. And it was $122,000. And I was just like, oh my goodness, we're never going to be able to buy a house. Right. And so if you feel like that right now, just know that's probably a pretty normal feeling. A lot of us went
Yes,
through that when we
it
first
can be
bought homes.
overwhelming.
Well, the nice thing now is the houses that I bought those years ago, and I bought them at the time. Yes, I paid market value for the homes, but between appreciation, debt pay down, tax strategies, all those things, they are now really valuable assets. And so again, owning a home, number one way for you to, it's forced savings, right? You're going to pay that debt down over time because you have to pick your mortgage. And fingers crossed, I mean, I bet we could go find a really cool stat that shows that, home prices have probably gone down 3 years out of the last 30. I'd say that's probably, I'm just guessing. I don't know what it is, but very few times, no different than the stock market, right? You go look at the S&P 500, there's just not a whole lot of years where it goes backwards. And that's what inflation and the government is intending for it to do, right? That's how you know it should continue to trend that way, is because our whole economy is based off of prices going up, right? So you get to lock your price in. So another cool stat I was looking at nationally, the percentage of high down payments, 26%, or excuse me, all cash home buyers, 26% of all purchases were all cash last year. That's up from about 10%
Oh
was the
wow.
norm from 2003 to 2010. You see how many more people, if you have the cash, or, a lot of this, what we're seeing is the baby boomer generation
Hmm.
has this massive wealth built up. One of the first generations to really invest their money into stocks and into 401ks. And so as they're aging, they have this excess money. So we are seeing down payments. I don't know how often you're seeing it on your sales or purchases, Dana, but where getting help from the family is a real thing, right? And it's a way to invest now, get a good asset, right? Take care of it and watch it grow. So we're seeing more cash come in because that really eliminates
Yeah,
the concern of the
yeah.
interest rate, right?
Well, and especially too, I think the higher price the homes, right? It's more cash buyers. You're not looking, yes, you got the jumbo loan options out there, but we are seeing more cash buyers kind of over that $1.2 million threshold. And then kind of speaking of the baby boomers, right? We specialize in helping those people kind of right size their lives in all faucets. And so whether that's home, financial planning, estate planning, that type of thing. But yeah, they're using that cash and then helping their other family members, buy properties and things like that. Even the couple that I was talking about yesterday, the parents are like, well, what if we could just go ahead and buy that for them? It could be a rental property down the road. So you're just constantly, gaining wealth, right? If you think of it in that aspect.
Yeah, I remember when I went to real estate school, our instructor said he bought a house a year for 20 years, and that was his retirement, was then he sold a house a year for 20 years. And so you buy a house, you rent it out. And I'm seeing more and more people. We took that approach with our children early on, was went and bought a house, and we kind of earmarked it for their future so that we could use that
Hmm.
as a tool for them. I thought that was really cool. Last year in 2025, 10% was the average down payment for a first time home buyer, 23% was the average down payment for a repeat buyer. So again, much higher than where it's normally been. Just haven't seen that level. But again, with prices being higher, that's really the way to combat the strategy there. You can put more down, you can buy the rate down a little bit, but just finding, because look, apparently most of us don't stay in our homes for 30 years. So we say you're buying the price, not the payment. Excuse me, you're buying the payment, not the price. And so it's you being comfortable in your bills. And as we sit down and work with someone, the bank traditionally is looking at an approvability of your income, not taking out taxes,
Hmm.
right? Just your total
Right.
gross income for the year. And they're kind of looking at that and looking at your monthly income and going, your monthly payment on shelter should probably be in that 35% range, right? So about a third of what you make should be going to shelter. Total monthly spend somewhere between 45, 55%, depending upon risk and where you're at on your journey. So when you think about that, now, if you make $10,000 a month, that's $5,500 a month towards total. That's $3,500 a month roughly towards house payment. But you got to make sure you're comfortable there, right, Danny? You got to make sure, because you still do have to pay your taxes. You got to pay the electric bill. You got to pay the gas, right? All the things that come
That's
along
all
with it.
you want, right?
Yeah,
We
yeah,
want
yeah.
you
And that's
happy in
that's where
that
I
house
think
poor.
you can get, yep, you can get pinned in. You hear that house poor to where you over purchase. And so guys, take it from me from history, right? Like I know the home is beautiful when you go into it, but over time, Dana, just right. I mean, when you go look at a brand new car, it smells nice, it looks good. You get in, you drive it. There's no like old French fries in the floorboard. It doesn't have that funky smell from the dogs throwing up in the back. It seems amazing. And then what happens? 60 days later,
That's
90 days later, it's just a car, right?
yeah.
And the newness wears off. And so I always try to help buyers think about that when they're looking for their home. I know especially first time home buyers, guys, like you're not going to live in that home forever. I get it. You didn't want the paneling. I didn't want the paneling in my, second, third house that I bought. You deal with it, right? You tear it out, fix it, replace it. It's not your forever home. It takes those steps, right, of getting through it.
Well, and I think that's important too. I had seen a statistic from December recently where just the fallout of contracts, right? And most of the fallout was due to inspections. And so, what I've tried to start coaching my clients on, whether it's first time home buyers or experienced buyers, right? We're there to look at, like, I say the three S's, right? Systems, safety, and structure, right? We're not looking at cosmetic things, but I really do think you have to have an expert agent out there to be able to guide you through that, right? If we're looking at systems, right, we're looking at year of HVAC, how it's, functioning, excuse me, and hot water heater, you're looking at your safety, right? Mold, electrical, any fire hazards, structure, your foundation, your roof. And those are the big main components. And so many people, and especially first time home buyers, right? I've seen it time and time and again where we're getting so much influence from family members and it starts to scare them. And you really just have to like back it down. Like I do this day in and day out. And so we really want to look at these three S's and, okay, if there's, something that is big, bad, and ugly and scary, like we're going to know. But if there's not, we really just need to go ahead and let's formulate a proposal over to the seller to see what they'll take care of before we just get scared away.
Psychological aspect of it's huge. You're right. We're seeing a large number of them fall out. I was listening to a podcast from our friends over at Compass the other day, and they were talking about the fallout and the repurchase kind of process that you see, and even back, pre holidays of homes expiring off the market or withdrawing off the market. And then the influx of what we're seeing, the stats they were showing are pretty interesting in terms of how many homes withdrew before the holidays and just how many more there are coming on the market, which really helps us with this affordability issue, right? It's going to take a ton of houses, guys, for prices to go backwards, but we need that influx of sellers right now. We need that influx of listings because a balanced market is a market where buyers can buy at a fair price and sellers can sell at a fair price, and that's really what everybody's after. The extreme markets are good for one party, not good for the other, not good for the economy long term. So we got to make sure we're kind of looking at that. Danny, you're right. When you come back to looking at the psychology, especially if you're a first time home buyer, any home buyer, you become so emotional when you go through this
Yeah, it
process,
is. Yeah,
and you become emotional about your money, which is really a challenge. And it's our job as professional realtors to be kind of that voice of reason, right? To help logic through, because you're right. I mean, if something's wrong with the system or something's wrong with the foundation, if I wouldn't live there or I wouldn't put one of my children there, I'm going to counsel our clients on, hey, maybe it is best to move on, right?
exactly.
Flip side of that
Exactly.
is we all get, I mean, I go to Best Buy and there's like six TVs and I pay, today you can get one for what, $400? And I put it in my car, and then I get buyer's remorse when I get home over a $400 TV. Like, did I pick the right one? Is it the right thing? Should I have
Best
went with a
brand.
different
Yeah,
one? Right. So imagine that buyer's remorse experience when it's a $450,000 home. And what we see is more people using the home inspection to kind of cope emotionally with that buyer's remorse versus
very
actually
true.
using it for what it's intended for. Right.
Right.
And again, it's not that they're manipulating their way out of the contract. They're just allowing little things wrong with the house that are fixable to cause them to kind of back out of the contract and then maybe go try to find something else. Every home's going to have its things, right? So, like you said, if the three S's are taken care of, probably was a good investment. Don't let the emotion outweigh the logic, and you kind of bounce out of the process because you just got panicked, right? With that buyer's remorse, pretty normal, right?
And even with new construction, there's going to be flaws, whether it's a 1995 home versus a,
Yeah, they don't
2025
offer a
home. You're
warranty
going
for
to,
nothing.
yeah,
Yeah.
amen to that.
And I can tell you when I was 22, 23 years old buying my first house, I would have freaked out. I mean, I think I sold a house one time when we first moved to Lebanon. Some good friends of mine, and it had a foundation crack in the bottom, and I panicked. And I'd been in the business a while, and I was like, "Dude, that's crazy, right?" And the seller paid like 30 something thousand dollars, something crazy at the time, to have them come in and fix it. And it's so funny because today I would just be like, yeah, right. Like, I mean, everything on a house is fixable. If you live, especially in Middle Tennessee, around here long enough,
All
you
that
just know that,
limestone.
like, dude, there's termites in the ground. Like, termite damage doesn't, shouldn't freak you out. I mean, again, you want to make sure
Radon
it's been
shouldn't freak
taken
you
care
out.
of.
Yeah.
Yeah, radon should. They're all things, right? But they're all fixable. The only thing you can't change about the house, well, you'd have to be an extremist, right? The only thing you can't change about it's location, right? That's why you hear location,
Location.
location, location. Unless you're going to jack that thing up, put it on a trailer, and haul it down the road. Probably matters more than anything is, are you in a spot that is helps you with your lifestyle, right? Where you want to be, close to the things, your churches, your works, your friends, things like that matters more than anything. Everything else, even if you build a home brand new, you know how fast time flies, right? 3 years later, 4 years later, something needs to be fixed, a door needs to be repaired. That's just life and part of owning a home. But that investment is definitely worth protecting. So, as we wrap up here,
100%.
Dane, let's talk about the local housing market. So, as we've seen over the first, today, as we're recording this, it's January 29th. We've spent about the last 6 days iced in. So, we'll see a weekly
Elsa was
drop.
really mad. Elsa was really mad.
Right, right. She just kind of blew all over Middle Tennessee, and so we've all been kind of snowed in. So you're going to see that in the numbers, right, as we report here in a
Right.
few weeks and come back to you. But really promising signs. The first couple of weeks prior to the winter coming in, we're up almost
Mhm.
25%. So we track the data weekly. We track it for the five-county area in Middle Tennessee. That's Williamson County, Rutherford County, Davidson County, Sumner County, Wilson County. Almost a 25% increase in new homes pended over the same
Mhm.
time last year. So a lot of
Yep.
people out moving around. I think interest rates have come down pretty good. Are you seeing that in your listings, Dana? Seeing more showings prior to Snowmageddon?
Yeah, prior to Snowmageddon, yes, 100%. So, or
Yeah,
Ice Mageddon, whatever you want to call it. I
that's
was
right.
really
I
hoping
love
for
that.
snow.
Yeah, me too.
But yes, definitely been quiet this week. Had some showing schedule, but of course, I think they're canceling here and there, just for the mere fact of people, can't get out and that type of thing too, or maybe, electricity's down where they're at, that type of thing. But we've been fortunate for all of our listings to stay with heat and electricity. But yes, prior to that, pendings are up, sales are up, and so we'll keep on keeping on. So we'll have probably a little lag this week, but hopefully when we meet again here in a couple of weeks, we'll be able to report a little rebound there.
Yeah, just like we've seen the last 2 years, right? So we saw it about 2 weeks earlier the last 2 years, but then you see a really big sales week about 7 to 10 days later, as you kind of almost get 2 weeks in the course of one as people get out and get moving, which causes us to be really busy and running around trying to make sure we're taking care of all of our amazing clients. So thank you guys for trusting us and allowing
Thank
us
you.
to be your preferred realtors here in the local market. December numbers came out, looked good, right? Pending home sales were up just slightly. December closings were up just slightly. And so, guys, I think we're going to continue to see that trend. We'll see a down week for week 3 or 4, where we at week 4 of January as the week over week data shows. But then we'll probably see, as you said, get past the Super Bowl, we're going to see a little bit of a spike. And then as we get more comfortable with this close to 6%, depending upon your credit and terms rate and how that impacts with more listings coming on the market, we may find that price is stable, the rates become stable, and I think we'll end up seeing a pretty good spring selling season. Remember, last year we really didn't have a spring at all. They kind of just glossed right over it because of the way the economy in the world was. And I think you see some wind in the sails as we start to get into summer and into later fall, expecting to kind of see some growth there. We know that because you're starting to hear our government talk a little bit about what they need to do in order to help housing. Housing downturns run on a 4-year cycle, guys. This is year 4. So we kind of know we're going to see these things once they make decisions, once interest rates kind of change. You kind of see that movement happening, and then it takes 3, 4, 5, 6 months in order to trickle in to your pockets and then out into the buying market. So not expecting any huge downturn in prices. So if that's what you're waiting on, sorry about your luck. Rates are getting better, so affordability is getting
Yeah,
better.
pretty steady
Guys,
there.
yeah, yeah. It's a good time to be in the market, right? Whether you're a seller or you're a buyer, please reach out to me, reach out to Dana, reach out to your favorite Huffaker Group agent. Would love to serve you here in the Middle Tennessee market. Or if you're somewhere else, would love to introduce you to a referral. We have referral partners in almost every city across the continental U.S. Dana has a ton just from all of our resources, myself as well.